It's a new year, and with a new year means more Battlebots Destruct-A-Thon news with it happening in February. And if you're an old school Battlebots fan like myself, an old head, you must have really loved the Nightmare news. Well, guess what? Y'all are about to eat with this one. You're also probably going to book a trip to Las Vegas after you hear all this. Not one, not two, not three, not five, but four Battlebots Comedy Central era legends returning to the arena for the first time in over 10 years, 15 years, 20 years for some of these robots. Stay tuned. You're definitely going to want to hear this at the Combot Collective.
Oh my God! Wow! This is the biggest flame we've ever seen.
Has preserved enough energy to get in the flip on Combot. We're going to go all the way. Oh my God! That's going to hurt. Grab the milk, Kenny.
Welcome to the Combot Collective.
Hello everybody and welcome to another Battlebots news episode here today at the Combot Collective, bringing you everything you want to know from the world of Battlebots 2023 and the Battlebots Destruct-A-Thon, which, like in our last news video, we are kind of continuing on with today as, like I mentioned, a lot of interesting developments came out from the Green Square Talks Battlebots podcast. And some of those developments I was hoping to cover after the rundown video for episode 1. But earlier today, Battlebots busted the seal on this news, and it has been the hot topic today in the world of robot combat. So let's go ahead and jump into this. I'm your host, as always, Sterling Brown, and with the new year and the dawn of this Battlebots Destruct-A-Thon series of live events kicking off in just under a month, there have been news and developments which we just discussed, like I said, about the return of Nightmare to the world of Battlebots, fighting exclusively for these Destruct-A-Thon events. But it turns out that was just the tip of the iceberg, and sadly no, Iceberg is not returning as much as I love Team Toad. As with the updates on both the Battlebots website and from our friends at the Green Square Talks Battlebots podcast, we now have quite a bit of new info about the events, and more importantly, which robots will be competing in these series of these events. But first, let's get the boring stuff out of the way. Let's discussing the Destruct-A-Thon itself first. We kick off by discussing Battlebots co-founder Greg Munson's recent appearance on the Green Square Talks Battlebots podcast, a show also co-hosted by our Porinog. Greg would bring up a few details about the series of shows which kicks off on February 3rd. The first one, a fairly obvious one, as with the abundance of shows coming up, almost 15 in February alone, I believe. Greg would state here that we are going to be seeing a lot of fights with rematches happening time and time over and over again over the next couple of months, which of course is the intention with so many of these robots built, so many copies of the robots built, I should say, plus the stock drivers and actor drivers which are going to be used on the shows. We can expect meetings such as Witch Doctor versus Nightmare happening maybe 5 times a week. So because of this, the Combot Collective won't be acknowledging these Showbot matches. And another reason for why we won't be acknowledging these fights is that reportedly these robots will be around the 300-pound marker instead of the original 250-pound class we see on TV. These robots are going to be built to last day by day, so these extra 50 pounds will be seriously beneficial to keeping these robots robust and well serviceable. But these omissions will not, hopefully, include the proving ground / qualifying matches which Battlebots is intending to host at these shows, with the means of seeing who the top 50 will be for the 2023 World Championship Season 8 later this year. Fights that will be 250-pound weight class matches. Info on these kind of matches, though, still remain fairly sparse, as we don't know any of the teams trying to commit to these new events, or even notes on the format or when these events will specifically happen. But we do know that Greg Munson has also shared with us that Battlebots is looking to hire a production and video company to set up a control room, cameras, and all the fixings so Battlebots can potentially record, stream, and archive these battles for future content, and even for use on TV for hero shot montages, maybe for some of the rookie bots. That was the example Greg Munson provided. This is an exciting development for all of us here, of course. Hopefully we will get the opportunity later this year to discuss the results from some of these live shows, whether it be Showbot or for qualifiers. And finally, Greg shared that he has 12 Showbots which will be present during these first waves of the Destruct-A-Thon, and he does intend to expand it as long as these events are a success. But now let's talk about why we're all really here. Speaking of these Showbots, let's talk about the robots, as of course non-showbots that we have, we already know some favorites such as HyperShock, Witch Doctor, Whiplash, Mammoth, and Malice, who, according to Greg Munson, was the first robot team to send in all their fully completed copies of the machine for this show. And of course, in terms of showbots, we have Nightmare. But for all of our old heads in the sport, all of our Comedy Central era nerds like myself, like I said at the top of the video, we are about to eat. Like I mentioned, not one, not two, but 4 Comedy Central era legends returning to the Battlebox in 2023, and even one brand new original newcomer from a very well-known reboot era builder. So here we go, let's kick it off with a team that we're very familiar with and a robot that we discussed the potential comeback of only a couple months ago when it appeared backstage during the Team Scorpius vlogs. In these vlogs, we saw Donald Hudson working on and showing off a brand new top module built just like the TAZBOTs of old. TAZBOT, of course, was an original Don Hudson signature heavyweight robot, a machine which has been fighting since 1996, where it debuted at Robot Wars USA under the name Taz. TAZBOT never missed an original run Battlebots championship, attending both of the 90s events in every Comedy Central season. It's defeated robots such as Rhino, Slamjob, Poonjar, and even the legendary Razor, while also reaching a top 8 finish 3 times in its 9-event career. And now we know exactly why Donald Hudson was trying to resurrect it earlier last year. The arm was likely going to be a prototype of what we're going to see inside the Battlebox come February, which means this machine will probably not strafe away from that classic Donald Hudson swinging a bat methodology that he talked about on the Robocast back in the day. That attack style when fighting, it's going to be very old school, and I'm excited to see it. And you know, if that's the case, then it likely means we're going to be seeing Overkill from C2 Robotics also keeping much a similar vibe entering these events too. And Overkill, that's right, also making a return after over 2 decades of Destruct-A-Thon, was recently brought up for a post we made on our Instagram, but now will likely find itself discussed quite a bit more in 2023, which is now setting up to be quite a massive year for C2 Robotics, as with this. And we have Christian Carlberg, who is signed up for RoboGames 2023 with Floorjack. Overkill has competed in all 5 Comedy Central seasons, and it really was the original spinner killer of its time, shutting down vicious spinning forces of the era such as Mo, Warhead, and Surgeon General via the use of that huge front plow it had and the iconic Overkill blade. Overkill reached the final 8 4 times in its 5 televised seasons, and even reached the finals versus Biohazard during season 4.0 in 2001. There's certainly been nods and homages to Overkill in the reboot era, from the recent Overkill blade made for Scorpius, and of course, C2 Robotics Overdrive 1.0 and 2.0 in the ABC era taking part of Overkill's name. In fact, I expect the brand new Overkill to take a lot from that promising design which Overdrive 2.0 had. Maybe keeping the same robot blueprint, but replacing that spinner with the signature Overkill blade. I think that would be a winning combination even in this era. But now let's make things a little bit more interesting. During the 2022 season tapings, we had a video highlighting Mark Satrakian's new robot Stalker, and at the end of that video, we discussed rumors about the fantastic builder Hal Rucker, the man behind robots such as Crazy Susan, Marvin, and of course Duck, who we have right here, will be one of the builders for robots at this Destruct-A-Thon series of shows. Well, thanks to the Green Square Talks Battlebots podcast, we now have confirmation that Hal Rucker is indeed building something new for the Destruct-A-Thon, but perhaps not what we were going to be thinking. According to the Battlebots.com website, legendary Battlebots Demobot and former McDonald's toy Ginsu will be appearing at the Destruct-A-Thon as a competitor, and Hal Rucker will be building the frame for this brand new rendition of the iconic machine. We don't know if it's going to be the 4-saw drive Ginsu or the far superior 8-saw drive Ginsu we saw in 2.0, but this wild robot, originally a creation of Battlebots founders Trey Roski and Greg Munson, has challenged the likes of ChinKilla, Mechadon, Minion, World Peace, and even Sewer Snake in its wide and storied career. It's going to be wild seeing the crazy Ginsu finally face the likes of Overkill, Witch Doctor, and El Diablo? That's right, for our 4th and final Comedy Central legend coming back, we go down to the middleweight class and say hello to Zach Bieber for the first time since 2016. Zach Bieber, the man who recently was behind Razorback, a robot which had an all-time great fight at Battlebots 2015 and then reached the top 16 in 2016, has stated a few years back on Facebook that he had desires to make a brand new El Diablo and bring it into the reboot era, but according to Greg Munson, he had not been able to commit the time due to his own company. Now, with the era of stipends and show bots with show drivers here at Destruct-A-Thon, we get to see this robot return for the first time in this 250 to 300 pound division under a brand new name, Diablo. But let's go back here first. El Diablo debuted in his second season of the Comedy Central Battlebots run, making it all the way to the 120 pound finals in his debut year, and put up a commendable 6-3 career along the way in these 3 seasons. Its brother, the 220 pound El Diablo Grande, is perhaps a little bit more similar in design compared to this new Diablo, but it did fare a tad worse than its sibling with a career 4-3 record, still winning. But despite this, these machines challenged and defeated numerous opponents such as Complete Control, Killer Bee, Bot Knocker 19, and Turtle Roadkill with their powerful spinning drums. Their new version, Diablo, is a tank-style design according to Greg Munson, and from the picture that we have right here, the new Diablo has ditched the signature drum for a pair of vicious dual 2 discs and what looks to be a lifter/remake arm at the rear. The sturdy robot still though has the iconic tracks and also a very well armored front and rear, plus some sturdy wedgelets it looks like. Perhaps this may be the most serious contender out of our returning classic stars. Well, that's all the Comedy Central robots out of the way. Old heads, you can breathe now, as lastly, we have a 5th new robot, a total unknown with a few gaps that we have been able to fill. On the Battlebots website for Destruct-A-Thon, along with all these big time returning names from the olden days, we're also presented with a literal question mark, which goes by the name Chopper. This has already caused some discussion in the online community, with some fans speculating the return of Helichopper among other teams and design concepts. But we do now have confirmation from both the Green Square podcast and the OOTA Discord collectively that Chopper will indeed be an axe robot built by none other than Zachary Goff, another person set for a big year this year as he has a robot in Robo Games as well, with the former lightweight champion on MakerBot making its return. Zachary Goff is one of the best drum bot builders in the sport's history, the original builder of Copperhead and Poison Arrow, a machine which has never finished lower than the top 8 in any event it attended. Zachary Goff has had much acclaim in the past with multiple 60-pound titles with on MakerBot like I mentioned, and of course great performances recently by all of his heavyweights, but all these were done via drum bots and all through what was essentially one big evolution of a single design. An AxeBot is about as far away from the drumbot spectrum you can get, but I am eager to see what a creative, very well fortified builder like Zachary Goff can do with this step in time. But that's what we have right there. 300-pound robots, 12 showbots apparently. A camera crew will be at Battlebots Destruct-A-Thon, and the tickets are already on sale if you want to check out these 5 if you include Nightmare, 5 Comedy Central Battlebots legends returning to the arena. Some of these machines entering the reboot era Battlebots for the first time ever. It is super exciting to see. And the ticket charts for some of these events have also gone out, and there is some very interesting stuff out there, including the platinum level seating. It looks like they have almost a damn near entire restaurant sitting over there on the upper deck side of the battle box. That is awesome stuff, something I would definitely try to get if I was in Las Vegas, or if I was going to Las Vegas this year. Sadly, I'm not, maybe next year, but I digress. Before we get out of here, and that is all the news, I do want to give a quick thank you to Green Square Talks Battlebots podcast. They were all over this info, talking to Greg Munson a couple days ago on their podcast. I will link that podcast in the description below if you want to hear more about this. Greg Munson's thoughts on, the 2022 Battlebots season, a little bit of behind the scenes on how the matchmaking process works, and even finally some closure on what's going on with all those unaired Comedy Central fights. You're definitely going to want to check out their podcast, and of course, you definitely want to go see the Battlebots Destruct-A-Thon. I'm going to have the tickets in the description below, along with Green Square Talks Battlebots, and alongside our sponsor for this video and all of our videos, RobotsRuinMyLife.com. They are the official merchandise sponsors for multiple Battlebots teams such as Team Shredded and the Omega team, multiple NHRL robots such as Wake and Bake, such as Shredded Bro, such as Blackbird, among many other teams. And they also have their own line of merch featuring their own amazing logo, which you can kind of see in the corner right here, that little robot. But that's going to wrap it up for us here at the Combot Collective. We talked about 5 new robots that are going to be appearing at the Destruct-A-Thon, and a little bit more news on top of that. But let's go ahead and get you out of here. I'm your host, as always, Sterling Brown. You can find me on Instagram at SterlingTXTG. And as for the Combot Collective, we have a Discord channel. That's where all of our video upload news goes first. You can find that in the description below. We also have our Instagram and our Facebook. We post numerous posts there, some not even on our YouTube channel. And speaking of the YouTube channel, please subscribe to the channel here. Give this video a like. Leave a comment on what you're thinking about Nightmare and all these caustic Comedy Central robots like Diablo, Ginsu, Overkill right here, all returning. This is some super exciting stuff, and I am very eager for the start of February for when these Destruct-A-Thon events finally go down. But let's go ahead and get you out of here. Hopefully we'll see you guys at our Episode 1 Battlebots Rundown, which will be airing later in the week. But until then, we'll see you next time.
This was the Combot Collective. Find us on Instagram and Discord.